In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about other ways to create shapes not using the pen tool. But instead, we'll be using what we call the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool also has under it in the button on the toolbar, the ellipse tool and the polygon tool. So I'll show you each of those very quickly and then what you can do with those. First, we're going to go ahead and pick the rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag a shape, and now I have a shape. It has a 3-point black stroke on it. I'm going to go ahead and fill it by opening up my swatches and put something in it. Oh, actually it changed the stroke because I had the stroke button selected here. I'm going to click the fill button and let's fill it with pink and have the stroke be blue on the outside. Now, looking at this, you can see that there's a bounding box around this this square. It's kind of not exactly a square, but we'll call it a square. And when it is selected, either because I just made it, or I can go over and click on the selection tool and you will see it retains it. It has a few other things that get added to it, but basically it still has a bounding box. But it changes if I click the direct select tool. Then we just have these boxes, and these are actually anchor points. So this is actually a path, just like I would have if I had drawn it with the pen tool. It is a path, this is a path, this is a path, and then the inside is actually sort of it's not separate, but it's not counted. It's a fill of that path that I just drew. Because the square is a closed object, not an open. If you remember, open has a path has ends, and a closed path does not have ends. Because it's a closed path, I can fill it with a different color. If it was an open path, I wouldn't be able to fill it because there would be nowhere to contain the fill. Now there's some things I can do to this this closed path. I can use the convert direction tool on one of the corners. So I would click on the anchor point of a corner, and then I could start manipulating it however I want. So I could make it almost a completely different shape, and the fill and the stroke on the path would change as I do that. Or I could actually go back over here to the pen tool and tell it to add an anchor point, and so I could add an anchor point like right there, and then go back to my direct select tool, click on it, and then I could use that to change my shape as well. So the cool thing is you can start with the rectangle tool or the other tools, which I'll show in a second, and then by adding, subtracting, changing points, you can manipulate that original shape into a different unique shape. So let's create an ellipse, or basically a circle. And I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to hold down my shift key so it's perfectly round. So there it is. So let me go to my swatches, and my stroke is selected. So let's make the stroke be red. Well, actually, I did the fill. I thought it was the stroke that I had selected. And let's do so let's do the stroke green, and we'll make it a bigger stroke, so it's kind of like a nice contrasty image. And so there we go. And we have this circle with this nice big stroke on it. Now again, I can select it with the direct select tool arrow, and there I go. And you can see it's got some little direction lines because it is a curved object and it's closed. But let's do this. Let's convert one of those anchor points into a straight point and see what happens. Oop, there we go. So now it's a corner points. And basically it's like two straight lines coming up against each other instead of a round point. So now I have a very different shape, and I can actually manipulate that even more to be a teardrop, or that's kind of an upside down teardrop, but you get the idea. Or I could add some more points and then use my direct select tool to kind of manipulate those. So, you can get some really funky looking shapes here by just manipulating the anchor point. So it's hard to believe that started out as a circle, right? And next we'll try the polygon tool. We'll change this to the polygon tool. Now the polygon tool works a little bit different in that when you first click, it's going to pop up this dialog window, and it basically is asking you how big you want the polygon. And I forgot to turn this to inches before I started, so that's why it's still in picas. But it also lets you create a star shape by making an inset. So you tell it how many sides you want your polygon to have. I'm going to go with 5. And then if you want it to be a star and not just a polygon, then you can put a percentage for every other anchor point to be inset. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, there it is. And I can actually make that bigger by dragging it a little bit bigger. There we go. And let me grab that. I'm gonna move it down a little bit, and then I can fill it. I'm gonna make it just yellow, and I'm gonna make the stroke go away so I don't have a stroke on it. And so there I have a shape that I made. I could also manipulate it the same way that I manipulated these other objects if I wanted to. That's how you use the rectangle tool tools to make interesting and unique shapes in conjunction with your pen tool and your direct select tool.